So last week I was down in Los Angeles shooting with Mr. Armando from Mondo Bites, and he had this really interesting looking gimbal that didn't run off batteries, that didn't have to do with any motors, but it worked magnetically. So we tried putting that up against my DJI Ronin S, and honestly, I have to say, I really liked it. What's good, creative fam? Brandon Washington here, and first of all, thank you so much for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button, because this channel is all about filmmaking gear, tips, and tutorials. And kind of in a unrelated / related hint, we are currently in the middle of a giveaway. So that's right now we are in the middle of our Moza Air 2 giveaway. So if you like gimbals and you want one, definitely check out the links down below, so that way you know what you need to do in order to enter. Hint, hint, subscription is the first way. But like I said, I got a chance to do a little bit of a collaboration with Mr. Armando, and in this collaboration, we basically took two gimbals and put them side by side or head to head. But honestly, these two gimbals really couldn't be any more different. I mean, the DJI Ronin S is that typical gimbal. It is what we are seeing everywhere. It's your 3-axis motorized gimbal, works off a battery. You have to balance it, you got to get it set, and then once you do, the motors take over and do all the work with all the sciencey science stuff. But the other stabilizer we got a chance to take a look at was the SteadyCross. Now, the day that we shot with these two gimbals, it was the first time I ever saw, touched, even actually worked with a SteadyCross stabilizer, so I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But I have to say that this thing truly shocked me in what I was able to get out of it. Now, whenever you're testing out two different types of stabilizers and you're trying to make them go head to head, you want to kind of pick shots that each one can replicate. And because this thing didn't work off of a motor, it was really difficult to get it set up. I mean, so basically what we did was we went with the same camera on both, which was the Sony a7 III. We went with the same lens, which was the Sigma 35 1.4 art lens. They both had the Sigma adapter on them. We put them both in 4K at 24 frames per second, and we turned optical stabilization off on both of these cameras, so that way we could see just what the gimbals were doing themselves. Now, the one thing I do like about with shooting with a gimbal is the fact that your shots are almost always smooth. I mean, they're very buttery smooth. They're perfect for the type of jobs that I typically do on a day-to-day basis. A lot of my commercial work calls for these high-end swooping type motion shots, but they need to be smooth, they need to be fluid. And so for this reason, I love shooting with my Ronin S. But with this other stabilizer, this brought in a whole other element of motion. So what I mean by that is, if you've ever shot with like a glide cam before, you typically know that with a glide cam, trying to keep the horizon line isn't the easiest thing to do. And that's what I found working with this. However, because this thing had two arms, and so it was easy to kind of have almost that original Ronin M style feel, or like that Movi style feel, it actually allowed me to keep this thing a lot more stable. So the first thing we did was we went out and we decided we were going to come up with a little bit of a sequence, kind of like a little film, a little short film sequence, in order to test these two stabilizers out. And so we decided to go with this kind of one-man chase scene, and I can honestly say that one, it was a ton of fun to actually do, but by doing this little sequence, you kind of got a chance to see where motorized gimbals can actually not work as well, but having something like a normal stabilizer actually comes in super handy. So for this sequence, just to give you guys a quick little rundown, we wanted to go with something impact, kind of action feel, and so I'm going to show you this sequence shot on both gimbals, and then we're going to briefly break them down, talk about them, and then I'll let you guys know my thoughts. Alright, so there you have it. Those are the two sequences. One shot with the Ronin S and the other shot with the SteadyCross. In my honest opinion, I think I like the SteadyCross one a little bit more, and here's the reason why. When you're shooting with a SteadyCross, you get this natural extra motion, this not so smooth motion that comes out of it. Now this is super interesting, especially when shooting more of like an action scene style video. You know, one thing I didn't necessarily like about the Ronin S was that it was almost a little too smooth. And there were a couple times where I was trying to get shots, and because I'm having to work with a motor and go off the speed of the motor, well, the motor didn't necessarily move as quickly as I wanted it to, so this meant I had to go back into the app, make some changes to try to speed up the motors, and then try to shoot the scene all over again, where the SteadyCross was able to actually get that shot on the first go around. You know, me and Armando actually had a really good conversation talking about the differences between the SteadyCross and the Ronin S, and that is, you have to be able to pick the right tool for the job. I mean, the SteadyCross allowed me to do a lot of really unique things. For example, you could flip it upside down, you could then move the handles a little bit higher or a little bit lower depending on how you're looking at it, and you could actually get really low swooping shots as well. You could also get just some really cool dynamic movement shots that had that little bit of a almost shaky cam to it, but also still keeping it fluid, that made this thing really, really awesome. The other thing that I thought was really cool was that this thing is really inexpensive relative to how much you spend on gimbals. I mean, you could get this thing for only $249. As of recording this right now, this is actually a Indiegogo campaign, which they did not sponsor this video. They didn't even send me one. We shot this whole thing using Armando's. Like, I don't even have one with me right now. But I have to say that for the price, this thing was super interesting, and I actually enjoyed shooting with it. You know, the Ronin S is still going to be my go-to gimbal. It's still my probably favorite gimbal that I've ever shot with. But this thing really did have me going. I absolutely love the shots that we got out of it, and it kind of allowed me to get that filmmaking feel back to the videos that I typically do. Although I primarily shoot a lot of commercial work, if you are shooting an action film or some type of narrative film where you want the audience to feel like they are a part of what's going on, I definitely think the SteadyCross brings that apart in that extra little bit of motion that you get with your video. So yeah, that's just my take on the SteadyCross. I think it's a really cool tool. I enjoyed shooting with it. I enjoyed shooting with Armando, and huge shout out to my buddy Sticks, who helped me capture all this behind the scenes footage. And if you want to check out his video, he actually shot with the C200 for the first time, which is what most of this behind the scenes footage was shot with. So if you are interested in that, you should definitely check out his channel. But that's all I have for you guys today. If you thought this video was helpful, definitely give it a big thumbs up. Also, if you have any additional questions about this thing, even though I don't know that much about it, definitely leave a comment down below. Don't forget, we're still in the middle of that giveaway, so if you do want to win a Moza Air 2, definitely check out the links down in the description, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace. By the way, if you guys are wondering what's going on with my arms, I've got cuts and scratches on both of them. I had a really nasty boosted board style accident, so don't worry, video coming on that very soon. But thank you to everyone on Instagram who has been asking me how I'm doing well, healing up good, but I appreciate each and every single one of you guys. All right, peace.